Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka, well, BN. Today, we have a myth, a gentleman, a proper chap from across the pond, the one and only MrSneakyy.
Oh God, you know, dude, you are honestly an all-star in introductions. I'm just saying, like, like an all-star in intros every time. But yeah, I'm across the pond. We're across the pond from each other.
Yeah. You know what I need to start doing? I need because I see the like whenever I'm watching a like a Shannon Sharp, a Club Shay Shay podcast. If he's I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I like the way he kind of does his intros, or even the way like Sean Evans from Hot Ones, he'll do it where like he'll have
Yeah.
kind of a list of accolades and things that people have done. And I was like, man, I just that would just take me just like just a few minutes just to go and grab some of those things. But I'll save that for later. I still feel like we did you proper. And so again, there's a lot to talk about. First and foremost, we need to answer the community's most salivating question today, which
All right.
is there beef? Are we going to fight? And how serious are we both not actually taking that?
Oh God, it was so funny when I read that comment. Like, I say it to you, like in the video, my whole thing was watch what the community can do with assumptions, and look what happened. Like, I never knew we were going into YouTube boxing in the end, but it looks like that's what the people want.
Absolutely. So okay, so you again, you put your video out on
Yeah.
again, kind of will I be quitting? Am I still going to be doing content, etc. I did my reaction to it. A number, not a lot, but a number of people, I guess a handful, if you will, based on when I was kind of going through the COD Discord, we're saying that, okay, hey, he's taking shots at Sneaky. He's taking it. What did you just think about my response to yours?
Well, I thought it was funny because, like, when if anyone actually watches the whole video, like, anytime I had a point, you agreed to a point to a certain degree, right? Which was fair enough because it's like I could say the game lacked content, and you was like, "Yeah, I can see where it's going with this," and you can agree to a certain point. But then obviously, like you had your own pushback and maybe your own points, which people didn't realize. Like, and when you watch the whole thing, it was just like agreement after agreement. So like to me, I was just like. I actually enjoyed the video, you know. I actually watched it all the way through. It was funny, especially when like I said, the little I knew you were gonna watch the video, so obviously when I shouted you out, and then obviously when you shouted me back, and then obviously the whole the whole comment started, the whole chain. But yeah, no, I enjoyed that. Like I said, it was a fair game. I don't understand why people are taking shit out of context. It just is what it is, right? I think at the end of the day.
If anything, it gives us something to talk about at minimum.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward a little bit. Let's get to the Creator Global versus China event that happened.
Okay.
A number of people felt that you should have been invited, just given how long you've been doing content for. Even though you're not in the program anymore, you contributed a lot to the community. You contributed a lot to CallofDragons overall as a creator. And that's prior to becoming a creator, once you became a creator, and even continuing to do content after becoming a creator. Even though, again, as I stated in my video, my understanding of it was that they were only inviting creators. I did not audit every single person, so I do not know if every single person was absolutely a creator or not. However, again, do you take that as a snub? Do you just say, you know what, look, I'm not in the program anymore. It is what it is, but I would have absolutely loved to participate if they did ask me.
Yeah, well, so the whole thing was obviously when you looked at the people that got invited, there was obviously the content creator program, which I expected, and then they did outsource other people. So you had like chess players, you had League of Legends players, you had quite a few other content creators, just obviously try and get more eyes on the thing, which makes perfectly sense. But at the same time, it's like some people, like you said, would have assumed myself would have been invited because of how many videos, how many guides I did cover for the game, and how much content I provided, even after, like you said, when I left the creator program. And like as you would know, like me and you were one of the first CCs always asking for a test server, like, and we were wanting this in the game, and it was like kind of one of them things where it was there, and yeah, it was kind of a disappointment I didn't get the invite. I'm not gonna lie about that, but it didn't really have any like impact on my decision. Let's just say that, because I had already been thinking about this for quite a few months, and that's why like even my channel, when you look at like the content, like I just slowly cut down to a point where like even now like I don't think I've done any Call of Dragons videos in like last 2 weeks, you know. So it was one of them where it wasn't really a contributing factor which people want to make out, but you know, like I said, the community want to make up stories. They can make up stories if they want to.
Yeah. You know, I think for me, the way I kind of view it is, you know, there was someone else, right? So like I think Snowman, from what I remember, I think he was there. At least I thought I saw him in the channel, and I don't think he does CC. I don't think he's a content creator, but I think it's the free to play player. It's the top free to play player, Snowman. So I think he was invited, and like you said, I'm sure there was other people as well that were there that were not necessarily, as you stated, right? Some CCs from other titles, maybe not predominantly doing a lot. And I even saw some people that, like, there were some people I met for the first time, and I had no idea who they were. Like, just, I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, I don't know where they found. Like, again, and maybe that's really what their plan was. Maybe it was just more about, okay, we're just gonna grab some people that, you know, have some kind of CC presence, whether it's on YouTube, if it's streaming on YouTube, if it's streaming on Twitch, even if they do a different game, you know, let's just try and bring some people in. So again, maybe that was the plan.
Yeah. Maybe even like you got to think as well, like it's good because you know veterans like yourself and guns and so on, you've never seen some of these new creators, right? So it technically is a good way for networking, right? So I'm not going to take any, you know, anything away from it. It was a good decision if they were trying to work on, you know, like networking for the creators to kind of like learn what each other do and who they actually are. So I like that part. It was kind of good on there. Obviously, there was certain things I didn't like about the event, but I think everyone had, you know, pros and cons to it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Let's, because again, I'm happy to give my thoughts and share on the event. So let's that sounds like a nice follow up. What were your pros and cons for the event overall, and then what would you have liked to maybe seen done differently?
so it was good because like they were previewing kind of the season, right? So that was kind of the whole thing, showcasing what the season was about, which is good. But at the same time, it was like a lot of the really good content which people would have wanted to see, like, you know, creators just wasn't allowed to do. They weren't allowed to do some 1v1 fights and random tests like that. They weren't allowed to do any sort of like real, you know, grittiness to it. They had to just fight in the team, you know, brawl, which was fine. But even then, like, which I felt when I was looking around, because obviously I was watching it on Guns' stream, but then I was going on Twitch to see the other people playing, right? The new people playing, and like you can go back and even check out like Lathyrus's stream. Like a lot of them just didn't know what they were doing when they were playing the game, and that was just because like they really didn't get what I seem to have got from feedback, like any real vetting or like, you know, like intro, like a little guide, like, okay, this is how you're gonna move your troops, this is how you set your troops and stuff. Like a lot of them didn't know that. So it felt like it was good because you were trying to get more eyes on the game, but it was bad because the experience they're suffering was a bad experience and not a good experience. So it was like I said, it was a pro and cons to it, and it was a good idea. I just felt like it was just executed like just poorly in my eyes. But that's me.
Yeah.
You obviously participated in it, so I'd like to hear like obviously what you was thinking about it.
Well, I will say this: it was definitely a cherry popping moment, but in a very fun way, and
Yeah.
in a PG way. And so for me, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was, and again, that's from me being, and again, my position is probably more of like, okay, this is like the first moment where I'm really doing some hardcore PvP fighting. Accounts are basically maxed. I can kind of run whatever. And obviously, I have to give a huge shout out to Mark from NTS and some of the other people in management because he did a lot. He prepped, he did some questionnaires that he did with us. He set up, I think, at least one voice meeting with everyone prior to and maybe the day before. So I think two. And then he gave everyone screenshots on what to run, what to set up. He gave some visual aids on movement, on where to target. Obviously, for some of the new people, it probably is a little bit of a steeper learning curve if you haven't already been playing, you're not familiar with some of the mechanics already, and just doing some of the composition and march building. But for me, because I already had an idea on doing that from just playing the game for a while already since beta, and you and I both started pretty early. So for me, I very much enjoyed the PvP aspect of it. I thought it was super fulfilling. It was super exciting, just being in the voice call, being in the moment. Like, dude, there is some adrenaline that gets pumping.
Oh yeah.
And that to me, along with, as much coordination as we were able to apply when fighting, it was great. However, the opportunities I felt was one, and obviously the other pro was, of course, that, yeah, listen, they gave us access finally to a test server. We were able to highlight and showcase content before its official release, which again were things that, as you stated, we have advocated for. I even wrote, I don't know, I think I sent you this too, if I did. I
Yeah.
wrote up like that big, long feedback on my 2-year experience in the program. And that was one of the things I mentioned in there. It got like 50 upvotes. Like basically all the active creators there upvoted it and hearted it and were like, yeah, this is great. And then we started seeing some of those things come out, right? We're getting some sneak peeks. We're getting some test server access. Right now, the creator program is feeling a little bit more like a creator program. And that to me, I think is a win. Even though it took longer than I'm sure we probably would have liked, I'm happy that they're doing it. I would love for them to do more of that. Now let me get to my opportunities. My opportunities for this is that, one, I liked that it set the foundation to do more with this. The next time, what they need to do is just, dude, bring in the top kingdom. Do the number one alliance global. Do the versus the number one alliance China. Do the top 200 players global versus the top 200 players China. Do an exhibition KVK where let's take the top 3 alliances global versus top 3 alliances China and put them on a special KVK showcase. And then do special awards for those people. I mean, like, the sky is the limit with this. You could even expand this to row. Do the top row teams versus the top row China. I mean, just think about what the building blocks, the foundation that they set here for the blueprint on how we can expand that. So that to me is where I would like for them to go with this going forward, and just expand more of it, and then allow creators like ourselves to have access to that, to be able to spectate, to cast. I mean, there's a lot there, but that to me would be my opportunities on where I'd like to see them go with it next.
Yeah, definitely. Like, everyone wants that to happen, and I think that's what I think a lot of people expected this one to be. A little bit more, just show off the game. Like, you want to show off the game, so show it off properly. Like, and it like I said, to me, it just felt like they missed that step. It was like the final hurdle almost in, like, the race in the Olympics, and they were getting it. It was going good. It felt great, and then that last hurdle, somehow they didn't jump it, man, and it tripped them up and they fell over, and it was just like, damn. But hopefully they learn for the next time, like you say, and they take this as a learning curve, and it will be interesting to see how the game like progresses in the next 6 months to the next year, maybe 2 years, and wherever the development's going to be for CallofDragons, right? So
no, absolutely. And again, those are things I'd like to see. I do think that they have a lot of opportunity there, and definitely some growing pains I'm sure we'll probably go through. All right, so let's get over to you in COD and your, obviously there always has to be a reason on why you would put out a piece of content, such as, hey, I might be quitting, or hey, the game might not be doing so well, or hey, these are my pain points with the game that just make it feel to me that I may not be that much interested or that interested in at the current direction the game's going. What are some of your biggest pain points with the game right now, and why are they?
my main frustration is like content. The game just lacks content for you to be playing the game. Like, literally, like you can complete all your daily tasks, to be honest, within about an hour or two, if tops, and then that's it. Like, there's no reason to be playing the game until you're in maybe a war, and even then, like, right now we're in this brand new season. Seems really cool, but we've got no real statue fights on our end yet. It's not been really engaging. Like the season, to be honest, has been kind of lackluster. But supposedly it's going to get better in zone 2 potentially, and maybe in the later zones. I'm not going to like put it out there, but it is the fact that like the game just lacks content. And the second point, which kind of I was leaning into there, is the PvP. Like the game's got such good PvP and it's so goddamn fun to play, and I love it. But it just doesn't allow you to PvP. Like the game is just too punishing, especially in the late game when you are like an actual T5 player and you are playing like at the highest level all the time, which a lot of people forget that like my account's always been against top of kingdoms. And like I'm at that point where I've fought so many top kingdoms, I am drained. You know what I mean? Like I am dunsies. That's why like it's been nice in this season where we've kind of stepped back, lowered the power, and it doesn't feel that much of a burden. But it's those main two issues. I think Call of Dragons for me is always gonna feel a bit like fall behind, if you get what I'm saying, because like that's why I've kind of just like stopped covering content for the game. I'm still playing this season, to be fair, like just to see how it goes. But apart from that, it's like I've got no reason to be in. That's the issue. Like I want a reason to be grinding each day, and then like or just something to be doing in the game, each day. But there just isn't. That's the sad truth. Like so they're like my main two pet peeves with the game, like, and why I've moved away. To be fair.
Okay. I mean, again, I think, I've said my take before on how I feel about events and the amount of time that we spend on them, or better yet, the lack of time that there is, along with the general lack of events, is that, my whole thing is I would love for them to have enough content in the game. So for those people that choose to, right? So it's an up to amount, doesn't mean that people are being forced to, but there should at least be, somewhere between like 10 and 16 hours worth of content. Even if you just want to say double or triple the amount of content, right? Where
Yeah.
if you could at least be in for 4 to 6 hours, and players that want to do that because they have the time available and they are choosing of their own volition to put that time in, that's fine. But there needs to be at least, I would say, 2 to 3 times the amount of time. If it's 4 to 6 hours, where like you could be in the game for 4 to 6 hours and constantly be doing something. To me, that just feels like a no-brainer. And it also
Yeah.
allows the players to have more control over their growth. Because right now things are limited. Like you can only do so much and then you have to spend. If there's more events in, now all of a sudden the game's becoming more free to play friendly, especially if those events can be participated by everyone. And now you have another marketing thing you can do. Now you can market yourself as the game that has 6 hours a day of constant gameplay that allows free to play the best opportunity to grow out of any kingdom builder on the market. Why aren't we seeing ads about that? I mean, to me, it just feels like, again, a missed opportunity. But I agree.
100%. Like it's just one of them, like you say, it's upsetting because it's all these really good things that you say that just you wish like they were listening sooner, because it could have already been at like a better stage. Do you get what I mean? Where it is right now. And I think that's where like even myself, like I've just kind of like checked out even on development. Like I don't know, we've got this brand new season 3 map, and some people might be like, oh yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing, but I wonder how long it's gonna take until we get the next seasonal map. Like it took so long just to get this one, and then we're gonna have this, and are we gonna go back to like how it was in beta, where we played the season 2 map like basically 4 times in a row, but now they can get away with it because
all the 2 plus 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 plus.
Yeah, like people don't realize like I've played season 2 about 6 times in a row, like because of how the development cycle works. People don't get that when they come to try like evaluate, especially like my channel. Like they forget that. Like me and you have literally gone through the trenches, ups and downs, as I said in my video. We've gone through all the loopy loops of the roller coaster that's been Call of Dragons, right? And this is where we're at. And it's just like how can I go on this ride again almost, if I already see like how it's been, and how long is it going to be till season 4? Like how long is it going to be until we get the dwarves or the draconians, or how long is it going to be until we get skill lock, or like there's so many like false promises that still hasn't been met from like a year ago that players have been like, when is this coming? Because like they've checked out because of it. You know, so that's where I'm at anyway on that part. You know, sorry for a little bit of a rant there, but
No.
it is what it is. You know.
I mean, I think the way I kind of view the skill lock thing is that I guess there's two sides. One side is without skill lock, which basically, i.e., is just allowing for a player to choose which skills they want to upgrade in order, is that because that's not there, the way the system is it either forces you to invest in a hero longer than you may necessarily need to, or you have to buy and purchase and spend on the game to get that hero to its ideal state. Versus if you have skill lock, now you're able to prioritize what skills you upgrade in order. And you still may end up in more or less the same position where if you're free to play, you may not necessarily max out a hero right away. You just may go after the most important skills, if it's one, two, however many, that are relevant to that hero and what performance you will be doing out on the field, or if you're assisting rallies, etc., building. And so but obviously, without having skill lock, it just feels to me that there's a little bit more emphasis on, okay, well, because we don't want to add that in, it is forcing you in a sense to either have to invest more resources or spend money. It's kind of how I view it versus having it in. And then now everyone is like just happy that they get to upgrade their. And on the same time, if you're able, I think this is a missing piece. And you can tell me how you feel about this. If you are allowed to have skill lock, I feel like it would actually allow and encourage more fighting earlier because the players would be able to prioritize upgrade the heroes that they want to use out in the field sooner without having to wait to get them without having skill lock to get to that
Yeah.
skill, right? Like, and I'm talking if it's more than just the primary, like if a hero needs at least 2 skills and it's not, for example, the second, it's like the first and the third. And because you can't skill lock anything, now you have to wait. Maybe you're like, well, okay, I have my primary, but I would feel so much more comfortable to go out there and fight if I could have my first and my third skill maxed.
Yeah, no, 100%, honestly. And to kind of like add on as well, like this is like something that you said in your video, which kind of like resonated with me because it adds to this point where, you know, people kind of mention about the factions, right? And you said people probably wouldn't have made so much a fuss out of the factions if the devs didn't say it in a mail and they didn't promise it, and they already gave that early juice, you know, that early juice that you want, right? They didn't. If they didn't say that and they, you know, and give that promise, then they wouldn't be in this situation. But they did, and that was the issue. And they've still not had it. And it's like people are waiting for that. It's like almost like a politician to like fulfill the promises they're doing. Like, are you actually gonna do this, or when are you gonna do it? Because it feels like for free to play players and especially low spenders, like skill lock is so important for them for like various reasons. Like you said, like I could get a hero and I know I can max out that first skill. I can immediately 4-star the hero. I can max out the level without worry. I can also go, if I have the ability to, 5-star and 6-star the hero to get the extra stats what I need to go against players, right? And with that like skill lock, then I can then, as you said, allocate it to maybe the skill 3 or the skill 4, whatever I may need, and just have like a 5-1-1-5 batch, and it gets me in combat and gets me in PvP sooner without worry. Because like a lot of the thing is people really want choice. People want to choose how they invest, especially in a game like this. Like if you're not giving the player the ability to choose how they want to invest and that flexibility from playing the game for how long they need to actually like get a hero to even like awakening, right? You have to allow the player to have some sort of ability to just choose who and choose what skill, and that, you know, do you know what I mean? Like it's just, it's to me, it's just ludicrous in this game that it's still not in yet. Competitors have had it in, and even their own game has some sort of skill lock system that a lot of people would have probably been like, do you know what? If you copied and pasted that over, we would have been okay. Like by now, they would have been okay with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's one of them where false promises made earlier on, that early Jews, and it's caught them now so many, like a year on and a year and a half on from development. So that's why I was like saying with your point, what you made in your video, I think that's the reason with skill lock. That's the reason why people bring it up so often, because of that, right?
Yeah. And to add on something you said about the spending portion, I actually think from what you said, it may actually encourage people. I think the difference between like forced spending and free spending is that obviously it's a psychological difference, but the fact is that there's a number of things in the game that basically, if you want to get somewhere faster or at times at all, you have to spend. But if you have freedom of choice, maybe that could encourage more players to spend because they don't feel like the choice is being forced upon them with something like a skill locker, as you said, having more options in the game and tools available to you, but to where you get to choose the path that you go down first, second, third, fourth, and so on. Maybe that would encourage more spending because people may feel like, wow, I have complete freedom of choice in this game. I can go down any path that I want. Nothing is absolutely locked to me. So now it's just about prioritizing what do I need to do first, second, third, because people are always going to come out with spending guides or top heroes or top pairings or artifacts or what, like those things will always be there. And as long as there's new content being pumped out from the dev, there will always be things to spend on. It's just a matter of what is the best thing to prioritize, right? Is often what it usually comes down to when you're starting. But I think that's a good point. It feels to me like having that freedom of choice could maybe encourage more spending.
Yeah, it to me it does, because like I said, like imagine like you're playing a game and it's like I can get like my Sybil right now. She's just come out and I could just then spend, for example, like $50, get a bunch of like tickets to eventually get her in the daily chest, right? And get all those sculptures knowing that I can just get her and allocate her to 5155 and get that investment because I know I can get it, right? Instead of me looking at it more of a situation where it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to spend and hope it lands on the right skill, and if it doesn't, I'm gonna have to invest even more money just to get that one hero. But like that puts you off. It's like that's a put off. That's not a good thing to be like advocating to the player base, like which a lot of players I think would agree with. Like they want to be able to spend their money and choose what they want to invest into. That's why whales and krakens technically just max everything out, especially in these games. It's just easier to do and not have to worry about it, right? If it's done, it's done. So 100%. And like with you saying with the spending, like it could open so many more avenues too, right? As well, like what they could offer players on what you could upgrade and what's to come into the game and stuff like that. So I don't know why they don't offer players more choice. It's just like an easy one, really.
Yeah. It's like just take the Mass Effect route and just just allow you to go down different campaign storylines. Okay. So how about next? I'm curious to get your take here on the KVKs. Now, one of the things I've pointed out a couple times is about how, to me, the final zone should just be like the crescendo. It should be the final boss. It should be the final act. It should be where we see the most amount of PvP, the most amount of days engaged, the most amount of fighting, and things like Zone 2 and Zone 3. Those are just preludes. Those are appetizers, right? But we want the main course, which basically is the FZ, especially given that they've made multiple updates to the final zone based on player feedback. But we have a number of KVKs, and it's been happening for a while, where because you're able to access across or adjacent Zone 3, whether that's through a Zone 3 pass, which they've obviously now taken out now in Rise of Dragon, now you have to go through the level 4 pass from Zone 2, but you can still get there, to another Zone 3. We've seen a number of KVKs where the KVK could have been hyped. It could have really been built up. There could have been a lot of great alliances. There were a lot of great players, a lot of power. But now we don't get the final zone matchup that we want to see because kingdoms are now getting basically Zone 1 locked and getting pushed out of Zone 3 because they don't have their Zone 2 control. And so we don't get that opportunity to see up to all the alliances fight it out in just some awesome bloodbath that could go on for a while in the FZ. What do you think about that? And my solution to this is very simple. It's just don't allow for the cross zone 3 level pass to open until after the final zone pass is open. And maybe you give it a week in final zone or however long, and then you can open the other passes for people to go in the cross. That's my easy solution to it, right? So it's like we're going up and down, just doing a U-turn.
Right. It's hard, man, because I honestly feel the devs for this one. I think this is the hardest puzzle piece. I think for any of this genre, I think not a single game this genre has clocked this. Because if they did, I think that would be the #1 game, right? Because the issue you have, especially like in CoD Dragons, like you said, like if you can invade or not, right? You're going to fall into a trap because some people say we want to be able to fight. We want more fighting. We want more opportunities to fight. Okay, then we're going to give you that opportunity. We're going to let you invade earlier and lock each other out. But then you get the bite of the bullet, like you said. And we had this in the beta, right? When Server 4, 5 and 6 fought against Server 2. And we fought them all around Zone 1 and we locked them out, right? Then you get the issue of then, okay, you've been able to fight, but now for the rest of the season they're locked out and you're not going to be able to participate in any of the content. So what do players really want? Do they want to fight or do they want content, right? And the general answer I have come to is content, where they, like you said, want to be able to fight in Zone 1. They want to be able to fight in Zone 2 and 3 and 4. But they want the final zone. That's the end game, and that's where they want all the action to be. And the issue is, from playing it for so many years now, like the game is, like I said, too costly to like play. Like if you want these big wars, you need to allow players like easier access to resources. It sounds crazy, but you do. You need to let everyone just be able to farm, because I'm going to be honest with spenders, resource isn't a problem to a spender. Resource is only a problem to any normal player that's not spending hundreds and sometimes thousands just on like mana alone, right? So like if they allowed fighting just to be cheaper and they allow just the game's PvP in general to be cheaper, you would achieve what I think everyone wants, which is the crescendo at the end, and you have all the fighting opportunities in all these earlier zones. But each map, as we've seen in the past, as you kind of brought up with the Zone 3 lockout, I don't know how you solve that, because that's just one of them things where some people like it and some people don't like it, and you can't cater to everyone. Like, you know, as we know, we're content creators, you can't make everyone happy. It's as simple as that, right? You can make whoever you want happy, but you can't make everyone. It's a simple thing to accept, right? So I think like the devs need to figure out one way. Like the one thing I would say, like if I were going to do it, is maybe, it sounds a bit weird, but like it almost would be like almost a reverse, where like your Zone 1 is like this island or something, and then if you're gonna go to fight in Zone 2 or Zone 3, like they kind of did with that statue zone in the last zone, and you could just teleport to that area, they should have like Zone 2 to be something like that, where you just teleport into Zone 2 and then that's the fight, and that's the whole zone. Because then your Zone 1's here, and you're like you're jumping out, and you're like, okay, we lost there, let's jump back in. Zone 2 opens, you use the teleport, you jump in, you fight, okay, we lost, you jump out. At least then like you have access to each zone, which is each kind of standoff or fight, and you get the access to the end zone, and you don't need passes and you don't need all this craziness. I know like a lot of the game is built on that, and it change a lot, but I would love to see something like that in a season where you're not binded by that, because they could still add, like say you're in Zone 2, argument's sake, you're in Zone 2, you teleport in, right, with your castle into there, and that's like your little fight zone. You would still have like maybe like your zone with like a wall, and then like a no man's zone, like a third, you know, like 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, and like there's still going to be a pass there, so you could try and fight in no man's land and then push into their zone or their final third. And if you do, well, you've got superiority. You can get the behemoths anyway, and you've won that zone, right? So like you could still add the mechanics they've got in the game and just change it up, right? Because I think that the main issue is no matter what they've done on any game, Rise of Kingdoms, this, Infinity Kingdoms, Age of Empires, any game, the biggest issue you always will see is how to balance the map with passes. And it seems like you just can't. Because if there's any sort of passes, any sort of invasion, there will be a way for players to lock out each other. Because at the end of the day, we're competitive. It doesn't matter how you think you are who are watching this video, like everyone's a DJ, everyone wants to fucking win. And if I can lock you out, I'm doing it.
Everyone's pay to win
incarnate. It's the easiest win. It's the easiest win, you know? Like, you must be lying to yourselves if you're not saying that, because some of the best wars have been those type of fights, man. I'm gonna be honest, like, some of them are crazy because you're fighting literally for life and death. Like, that's how it feels.
You know, it was that season, that NTS Noir season, or sorry, that TFS Noir season, right, where they were fighting, basically all the majority fighting was in zone 3. And then by the time it got to final zone, people were like, oh no, don't worry. We're going to fight. We're going to go hard. TFS and OR are going to actually go at each other. Fighting lasted less than a day and it was over. Right. Yeah. But the bulk of the fighting happened in zone 3. And you're right. Obviously that's one of the more recent highlighted examples of, okay, the opposition lost, they got locked out. And then it was just the TFS Noir show at that point. But because they're allies, how hard are they going to go at each other, really, right at that point? And clearly they didn't. Similar thing happened with TATM, and I can't remember if it was GG or what the other alliance was that they had. And it was like, it was one of those earlier seasons where they had teamed up and they went against, but because they had a power advantage, and then it's like, oh yeah, don't worry, we're going to fight in the FZ. And then they didn't really end up fighting at all, or it just didn't last that long. I mean, yeah, so you're right. There's been historical examples of this happening in the game where zone 3 essentially is the deciding, or whatever the last major zone is, and typically zone 3 is the deciding factor that either makes or breaks the KVK. And it just feels like more often than not, it is kind of breaking it. I do agree. I do like the idea that you mentioned of basically kind of having your own islands, like a big island, right? So like maybe your island is bigger and your island allows for you to still build your territory. Maybe it allows for you to capture behemoths, but they're just not that far away, maybe do some other objectives. And then you have like these separate zone islands. Maybe it's like a zone 2, a zone 3, a zone 4 island, and each of them have maybe different objectives there. But it's mostly, and maybe on those islands you can still build buildable structures but not flags. So maybe you can still build keeps, maybe you can do turrets, maybe they'll bring back barricades. Like maybe it can be more of an open field objective based fight that maybe isn't focused so much on things like rallies, so to speak, right? So, but you know, whether or not you could build a bastion or not, but maybe something like that. Or even if it's just a single field, right? Maybe it's a single field, and maybe it's like a single map. It's like a big circle, and then it just changes. Like it starts off as a zone 2, it levels up and like layers, and has a new layer that comes on that zone 3, then a new layer that's the final zone, all kind of corresponding with the Augur Stone. But that actually isn't a bad idea. Like I can actually get behind that.
Because as well, if I'm a designer as well, like of the game, to me it makes sense because what you can do with each zone, and like to me it just seems common sense. As soon as I say it, a lot of you guys are going to be like, ding, duh. But like to me, each zone should be tailored to a unit, and it sounds a bit weird, but like imagine one map that is a little bit more cav heavy. It is a little bit better for the cavs, but then there's another map which is way better for mages and flying units, and you got one which is actually just infantry top like dick, you know what I mean? Like, and then the final zone is like a bit of blend. It's like the blend of each of them, because then each zone has its own character. Each unit that you play, and that some people do like specialize into troops, those players get areas where they can outshine others and show their skill, right? And then you have other areas where you might be a little bit weaker, but you don't know. because it's all skill based. But I love the fact that they could easily do that because there's 4 troop types in the game. So why not make a map for each of the 4 troops, right? And then have this overall map that they can have at the end, because it just makes sense to me, from a designing point of view, because it should make it a lot more, I would say, like dumbed down on what you expect, right? Cavs want nice open field, really good areas that they can flank around. You know, mages really want all these different plateaus and just crazy openings that just divide the battlefield constantly on separate areas, because then they can use the range to fight across 2 tiles, for example, right? So like they could do all sorts of really cool stuff with it if they just fought a little bit more with, you know, the troops they've got, the way they can design the map, and the way like implementing it for troops. So that's what I mean. Like they could easily do stuff like that. Like, and like they could do more. You know, I could keep going on. Like,
What do you think about this idea? And I've proposed this before, but what do you think about them adding a ranged percentage increase if you're on elevation? And I've said this before, where it's like if you have mages or archers that are on a hill, maybe even flying too as well, right? If they're on a hill, maybe they get like a 5% range increase. So it's like, you know, nothing obviously major, but maybe it allows for them to get, you know, 1 or 2 shots in before the other opposing unit comes in to range. And obviously, if they don't come into range, then they have a slight range advantage because they're on an elevation. What do you think about that?
it sounds cool. I'll say that. Like, it'd be cool if there's some sort of buff for higher ground. You
Yeah.
know, like if you are on a high ground, like all they have to do is literally just, because technically when you're moving a model up a higher ground, it's moving on the Z axis. So as long as you're on this Z and they're on that Z, there could be a buff, like you said, it could be ranged. But I think it'd be more something like, you know, you might have like some sort of defense penetration, or just something a lot more easier to code in,
Yeah.
because adding range sounds a little bit crazy to me. Like,
But keep in mind,
it
they've
just
already
sounds
done it
just
with the season
weird.
policies, right? Where they allow the
Yeah,
archers
yeah.
to
Season
have.
policies are a little bit different though, right? Because season policies and like the seasonal abilities, what made the season, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
long range warfare made that season. You know what I mean? Long range. That's everyone knows it for that one thing now. It's the long range warfare season.
Yeah.
So it's one of them things, and like each one ties down. So I wouldn't call it like something like similar to policies or all, because it is like a foundational mechanic, if you want to say anything. Like it would be a foundation and not something that's unique, if that makes sense, to a certain season. But I do like the
Maybe
idea.
it's
It's
something they
cool.
test out. Maybe they treat it like a seasonal policy or a seasonal talent or something, right? And it's like, hey, let's test this out for a season, because I think that's the one thing they can use KVK seasons to do is, hey, let's test
Yeah,
things out and let's see what works and what doesn't work. And I think they've done an okay job of that. There's always been a couple things that catch people off guard or are new additions in a season. But yeah, like to me, like that seems like one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love for them to bring things like barricades back, and you know, like I know people have even proposed being allowed to make their own bridges, having like one new bridge they can build across a river, or like a ramp that they can construct, something that allows for those support players to also get some love, right? People
yeah,
that can do more of the building and destroying of flags, building and destroying of structures, right? But maybe they're not going to be those heavy on-field, open-field frontline fighters. Maybe they're, you know, more of like, okay, hey, I'll fill a rally, I'll do some building, you know, but I want to shine in another area. To me, it almost feels like the role play in COD could be more than what it is. Almost like how we view something like Overwatch, or we view World of Warcraft, and you have these designated roles, even a MOBA, right? Like League of Legends, etc.,
yeah.
where you have dedicated roles and people and everyone has value. To me, it almost feels like COD is scratching the surface, but maybe there's just not enough of that.
That's the one thing I think I would have loved it to have done, because it could have easily done it. And the thing is, what I've always said from the beginning of my channel was the game's a fantasy based game. And the issue to me, and some people like huff and puff when I say it, but like they could have been churning out way more heroes faster But they could have given players more rewards, because the thing is, if you're churning out more heroes but you're giving them more rewards, it just balances each other out anyway,
Mhm.
right? But it just makes the free-to-play players feel a little bit better on, okay, I'm getting more rewards. I can actually, awaken maybe a hero or two faster compared to before. And like, that to me is like the thing they've missed out on, because if they did that, like you said, you could have easily had so many more heroes already in the game. You could have had new players coming to Call of Dragons with the intention of going, okay, I know I can play cavalry and go down this route and go down, these specific heroes in these seasons. Now some people might say, oh, you can do that, but it's a lot more linear. Like, and I don't think people like linear like gameplay. They like to be creative. Like we saw that with the whole season where you could swap out hero skills, and people were just doing some absolute crazy builds with some of the most like insane hero switch skills. Like that's what people want. They want to have a little bit of fun at the end of the day, and I just feel like the devs need to just accept that and like say like move away from what they're doing, which is to me it feels like they're just doing the same development path which they did with Rock. And if they want to do that, that's okay. Like it's comfortable, I get it, but I think a lot of us, including myself and other CCs that quit prior, didn't want them to do that. We wanted a little bit, something extra, something new, something creative, something that really did like get you smiling again. Like this is a game that I'm glad I'm a part of, and this is a game that like has so much depth and stuff. Like, because it doesn't, unfortunately, like they missed that mark to me. Like, so hopefully 6 months, a year's time, the game can look completely different to how it is now. And we've seen that with the development from this year to last year, let's be real, right? So it will be interesting to see what happens with Call of Dragons anyway.
Yeah. I think given the track record they've had as of late, as a nod to your mention, I like and I appreciate the fact that over the past healthy number of months, they've been, it feels like it's been a W after W, whether it's an update, if it's a dev feedback, if it's a Q&A, if it's a Hall of Kings Q&A. Like they've really been addressing a lot of, obviously not everything, but a lot of community concerns and community feedback. I will say it's interesting the thing you bring up though, because to me it kind of falls into that catch-up mechanic realm where so this is something that, for me, collecting all that free to play data that I've been collecting for so long, that's something that can really speak to that, which is okay, we have newer, and now that I've expanded my free to play list to like 20, I think I'm doing like 20 mil and above, or 20 or 25 mil and above, or something like that. Now we can get more people on the list, and we can see what does their development look like. And because now we're adding more people, we can see where the trend lines are, right? How much do you have at a certain point? How long is it taking you to get your first T5 unlocked? Maybe I even ask people how long it takes for them to get 5 heroes maxed, or 5 heroes at least skilled to like 511, at least maxing out their primary. Like how long does it take for you to get 5 legendaries? More specifically, 5 legendaries, right? To have up to 5 marches. Like I think things like that could be other areas that I work in, so we can get gauges on, because again, free to play is your minimum. Like that's your baseline. And you need to know how long it takes to get to certain things. And to me, I think that's where we're able to start saying, okay, well, look, Boss has the data. This is how long it's taking players just to get their first T5 unlock. This is how long it's taking players to get their all their buildings and tech maxed. Here's how long it takes to get VIP 15. Here's how long it takes to get second, third, fourth, and all their T5s unlocked. Even just knowing that, which obviously the thing that would most likely happen first in that scenario is probably getting their first T5 unlocked, or maybe buildings. But just knowing where a starting point is and the duration of time it takes to get there can also to us indicate, okay, well, that obviously needs to happen faster, or maybe it should take longer. I think the general consensus is that, especially like you said, with heroes constantly being introduced, artifacts, new war pets being introduced, are they scaling the amount of rewards and compensation that can be attained through events or other means at where it's a 1-to-1 ratio, where it's like, hey, you're adding this, we need to scale and either add a new event in or we need to increase rewards. Because to me, it really feels like, and it's a great point you bring up, to me, it almost feels like, you know what, we're always going to add new heroes, we're always going to add new artifacts and war pets, but we're not scaling reward compensation appropriately to where those catch-up mechanics are always falling behind. It's like the goalpost is constantly being moved. That's kind of how it feels to me.
Yeah, because you'd expect, like, the thing is, it's like a new player right now should progress faster than any other player in beta. Like, in theory, 'cause there's more there, which is 100%. But a lot of the people who's been playing from beta, all they're asking for are literally, like you say, like some sort of catch-up mechanic. Like, why not, like, when they are playing the season, there's like in Rise of Kingdoms, a really good example. They have the special chest, right, where you can earn keys specifically to unlock heroes that are from like G2, G3, G4, for example, right? And that's all it is. But at least they could have done something similar like that in CoD for other heroes, right? And the thing that I feel like CallofDragons has done, like, this is like the biggest mistake, like, coming into it from my point of view, is now there's no structure or like there's no layer of progress, if you get what I'm saying. So like, I'm playing Age of Empires Mobile. People might hate the game, but the difference with Age of Empires Mobile is, compared to other games, the tech is the fastest thing you do. It sounds weird, but getting T5 and getting T6 is actually pretty fast. A lot of players, free to play, are actually starting to get to that T6 stage now. And once you hit T6, so people might frown upon this, but you can watch my live streams. I'm a T6 player and I'm absolutely demolishing some T7 players, right? The thing is, like, the tech is the quickest thing to do. Do you know what I mean? And then the heroes is like the next stage. And then you know that like the end game grind is technically like the gear in the signet ring. So there's always like a progression of what you know you need to do in that game. And I feel like CallofDragons doesn't have that, because the tech takes just as long, if not, longer than a hero awakening, and like and then that goes into war pets, and a war pet just takes even longer. Like, there's no actual like nice steady progression in the game at the moment, which I think is what people are asking for. Like, we need this like in the game, and until they figure that one out, again, like, I don't think COD's gonna get any better, because that's the how it feels. It feels like you're against a wall, you break through it, and then there's an even bigger wall. You break through that one, there's an even hencher wall, like, compared to like a nice little like hurdle, and then like a wall, and then maybe like a jail cell. You know what I'm saying? Like,
all right.
It feels up.
went steep fast. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's so what it sounds like to me you're saying is that it's almost as though you would like for everything to be unlocked in stages or at certain phases. And then because everything is unlocked in that stage, i.e., like you were saying with AOEM, the tech is unlocked, or you're able to get it either near max or max. That then makes it easier to make next decisions and prioritizing what you're then going to invest in. And also, then it kind of unlocks the second hurdle, which is, okay, now I need to go and max this so I can open up all my options here. And it almost sounds like it's more quality of life. Like, it's more easier access and like an easier understanding, and almost maybe a little bit easier barrier of entry into the game. At least for, again, I haven't played too much. I played a little bit, but that's kind of how I'm perceiving it, if that makes sense.
No, it's not that. It's like I said. Like, no, I think you're missing the point. Like, this could be any game. Like, we could talk about World of Warcraft. We could talk about.
Oh, I'm just saying my
Call of
understanding for what you
Duty.
said.
Like, the progression in CallofDragons hasn't got it right. That's what I'm saying. Like, they need a better progression path, because, like, for example, it shouldn't take a player over 2 years plus to get T5. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Like, that shouldn't be a thing, man. Like, if it took you a year to get T5, or maybe a year and a half to get T5 for completing all the tasks in game as a free-to-play player, cool, right? And then it might take you longer because of how long it takes to get the war pets and then the heroes, and then who knows what Call of Dragons brings out next, because like these games, as we all know in the past, always add some sort of power creep, right? There's always some sort of power creep to add on to the next thing. So it's one of them where it just feels like even like you said, the barrier to entry is already too steep that players are kind of like, whoa, wait there, man, like where's my time going?
And to give you some numbers, right, to add on to what you're saying, the current records right now, right? So at the moment, there's 10 players as of the last free-to-play world record I did about 2 months ago. And we usually do it every 2 months. And so what the very last one we did, the world record right now, or the range of how long it takes for a free-to-play player to unlock their first T5, the shortest amount of time is 420 days, aka 420. That's funny right there. Ragnar 666 was the one who did that. The longest amount of time it's taken was by Captain Snowball at 653 days. So you're still talking, what, a year and 3 months or so, right? But also that's the fastest. That's not the average. Again, keep in mind, these are the top free-to-play players that are averaging between 420 and 653 days. These free-to-play players on average are in mid-spending to high-spending alliances or somewhere around that mark. So they are not the baseline average. They are more of the high-end average. So you're probably looking, I think that's right. I think it's closer to about 2 years, maybe 2 years plus for someone who's probably in like a lower spending to maybe mid, but like maybe transitioning from low to mid spending alliance. I think it's a lot closer to 2 years and 2 years plus than it is closer to a year, maybe to a year and a half. And so I absolutely agree with you. I don't think it should take, my whole thing is this. I feel like you should be able to unlock all T5 at a year or within a year. It should not exceed over a year. You need to be able to unlock all your T5 units either at the year mark or in under a year. Just because it's going to take you, like, people feel like, what, free-to-play players are not all of a sudden going to max out every single freaking hero. They're not going to max out every warp pet. They're not going to max out every artifact, even if they're able, and this kind of goes into your tech thing about AOEM. Like, why not allow them to just open up the doors and finish off the academy at a year or within a year? I don't see anything wrong with that. It's not like free-to-play players are all of a sudden going to be able to catch up to people that are spending, but the game will all of a sudden become a lot more free-to-play friendly, even though it still takes them a shiitake mushroom amount of time to get everything else.
Yeah, literally. It's just like one of the things, like, people don't realize, like, the psychology of games. Like I say, you need to remember, like, the good days. Like we all say, the good old days. Like, you went home, you booted up bloody Call of Duty 4, dude, and like the grind was 10th prestige. Like, that was the grind. Everyone wanted to get the 10th prestige, and it took ages to get there. But the mini progressions were the milestones of getting to certain levels to hit that weapon that you wanted that would just destroy people. You know what I'm saying? So that just showcases, like, every game, no matter what. If you're an actual gamer, you play games, you love games, it's in them all. And like, this one is just not hitting that mark. And I'm waiting for them to do it, but I don't think they will, because of how it is right now. Because technically, if you think about it, if they try to do something like that, how are they going to reimburse everyone who's already done all of that tech? Because you can't. You know what I mean? So the only way they can do something like that is by adding, like you said, more, as I kind of mentioned, like more rewards, more content in the game, so you can actually do stuff. Because you can do stuff, you can achieve things quicker that are already set in the current time frames. It's as simple as that. So hopefully we get some good, some good changes soon in that direction.
Absolutely. Okay. So what about what are some things about the game that you feel like, you know what, if this was added in or if this would change, it would make me reevaluate my whole life, my philosophy on, okay, I need to just now grind and pump content out because this thing has exactly what I want and how I want it to be.
Well, there's two things I've always said. So the first one is I wished what they did were with Battle Abyss is a really good example of this. Like, they have the campaign area where they've got obviously the Roots of War. You got your like arena thing that's just like I forget what it's called now, like Lost Kingdom in Rise of Kingdoms, and then obviously the basic story thing that you don't care about, the Dragon Trials. Like they could have had another game mode in there, like Warfield or Battlefield. Let's just name it for now, right?
Mhm.
And in Battlefield could have been Battle Abyss. They could have made Champions of Olympia equivalent in this. They could have made all these little mini game modes, as we've been saying, where you can go in and you might be just climbing a ranked leaderboard for points, and maybe at each month you get some rewards. But it gives players and like especially like people like me and Guns and anyone who's like wanting to really get into content and just play the game, it let them do that because like Battle Abyss was really cool, but at the same time it was like it fell short again. Like such a great idea, an amazing idea. Because guess what, Age of Empires has this exact same idea, but guess what? It doesn't break our hospital bills. Like, it allows us to just play PvP. We've got Battle of Dawn, we've got Wonder Contest. Both of them just let you go crazy. No hospital bill, no filling, no nothing. Just go crazy. And that's what Battle Abyss should have been. And
Yeah.
you know, I hope they get these type of game modes in and add it into its own area, and then let players experience technically like PvP and experience what CoD Dragons is all about, because that's what people want. And then the second one would be if they honestly took a really good philosophy on separating content. Because I think that the issue a lot of players have, including myself, including free to players, spenders, you see it all the time, is like there's certain things just in areas that you just don't want them in. And like again, that kind of gives players just like mixed reviews on should I be grinding this or should I do it in that. Like a good example was like artifacts. I've always said like artifacts that you are summoning in that area should be just PvP based artifacts,
Mm.
even if they're bad PvP based artifacts. Just do that because the farming artifacts and the PvE based artifacts should be in PvE content, where it makes you as a player complete that PvE content to unlock it. Like you want to incentivize both sides of Call of Dragons, and they're not doing that, and that's because they've mixed everything into this in this mess. And like, I think once they get structure and they go, okay, you can complete these areas, and you're gonna be able to get maybe like a more PvP based artifact, and then you can go to these areas, and you're gonna be able to get more PvP based ones or PvE ones, right? And then there's going to be some events in the middle that has a little bit of a crossover between both. But until they get that structure and then they get the ability to let players play the game, have content in there that they can just have fun with when there's nothing to do, then I might reevaluate my whole life situation. Because that's the thing that I think a lot of us, including me and some of the CCs, have been wanting Call of Dragons to have been. Like, this is going to be like Rock 2.0, even though they don't like to say it. But it fell short somehow. Like, I don't know how they've made it fall so short with such, honestly, amazing gameplay. Like, that's the saddest thing about it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think COD is. Don't get me wrong. I still think COD is at the forefront. Like, I still think it's leading the charge. This doesn't mean that I'm gonna rate it like a 9 out of 10 or anything, but I do think at least based in the space, for if we're looking at all the kingdom builders in existence, I think it is still leading the charge and at the forefront of a competitive kingdom builder, and I think a complete kingdom builder, despite still its current opportunities, which again there are quite a few. I agree wholeheartedly on the Battle Abyss point. I think Infinity Kingdom had something like this too as well, where they just made instances. So you didn't lose any troops, you didn't have to lose any resources. You were able to just have the amount of troops that you had, and then each player had a certain amount of healing or reviving that you could do. And then the things that were different were which troops you bought in, so you could choose your loadouts and everything like that, and that would go off of your player stats, right? So what have you unlocked, what have you leveled up? So you have the heroes, artifacts, war pets as example in Battle Abyss, and you that would go off of what you personally have got them to. But everyone would have the same amount of troops they could use and the same amount of reserve troops that they could use. So that way, resources, you don't need any resources, right? So it's completely pointless. There's no need. And then it just came down to which side is able to more tactically and strategically outplay their opponent based on the limited amount of troops that each side equally has. And I would be okay with something like that too. I think that's spot on.
Yeah, definitely. Literally, they just need to just, like I said, do something different. It's as simple as that, because they've gone down one path and it just didn't work. And like, obviously it didn't work because people left the game, unfortunately. Like, you have to be the bearer of bad news, and you have to be able to grit and bear, and say it. Like, people have left the game. Like, but hopefully they come back. Hopefully new players come to the game. It's down to the devs. It's always down to the devs to, fulfill their end of the bargain. As I say, like, they promise a good game, okay, fulfill it. And it's just one of them, you're kind of waiting for it, So
yeah. What do you think about this thing that that Guns said once upon a time, which was that, and I've heard this from other spenders too, but that basically there's some spenders in the game who only want to play. It's kind of like the Nephisto effect. Like, they only want to play, because Neff has said this a couple times too, where they only want to play if they're always at a constant advantage. And the moment that the stats or the marches or the sides stabilize and it's no longer kind of a punching down effect, but it's more of, okay, now we're punching on the same height, and it really comes down a lot more to tactics and strategy, it's just not fun for them anymore. And that's at a point where they consider quitting, lowering their spending, or stopping. Now, obviously, everyone is going to have their own thought, and people can play however they want. They can spend and use their money however they want. But to me, it very much feels, I don't know, I guess that's just not a thought process I ever would have heard someone say, especially with how public the community is in these particular games on their competition level, and how much emphasis is usually put on tactics and strategy, smart match load ups, theory crafting, march testing. I mean, like, these are things that are pretty well known in the game, especially, I have to imagine, once you kind of get to the upper echelon. What are your thoughts on that?
well, I don't know if I don't know if Guns has said that himself, but like,
He said that not about him. He said this on his stream, and it was that it was feedback he heard from some people.
Well,
yeah.
Well, what I think, I'm going to be honest with you, I really couldn't care about those type of people. I'll be real.
Okay.
Like, those type of guys,
you're all worthless.
I get it. They're investing loads in the game, but if you're gonna quit just because someone like me, someone like Snowball, or someone who's played the game for so long has caught up to your power level and your strength, and we're smacking you down because we're playing on an even playing field, then I'm sorry, but you've got no sympathy for me. Like, you've got none, because the game's competitive, and if your only attention is to basically like go in to bully people, cool. Like, that's you. And I'm not gonna say like that's a bad thing. So, like you said, some people like to do that. Some people need to be able to go in and bully people on games. Like, that's fair enough. Go for that. But you're not gonna get any sympathy from me. I'm sorry. Like, it to me, it just sounds stupid. Like, like you said, it's a war game. It's a strategy game. It's all about tactics. And as soon as tactics comes involved, you're gonna throw in the towel because your wallet's not big enough. Like, get out of here, dude. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's such a bad mentality to have. Like, just in general, I just think just in general having that in outlook in life sounds terrible. So. Yeah, there you go. That's the hot take. Everyone can go rage on that.
Big rocks. No, I mean, I'm pretty much in the same boat. It's just, I guess for me, it was just shocking when I heard it, and I just never really thought that was something that I ever really would have heard, because my whole thought was, well, okay, these people are spending just so they can basically get out in front. They can have a lead. They can get to end game faster, and really the most enjoyable part for them is once other people get to end game faster, because then they have more people they get to fight against, and it doesn't always feel like you're just, again, kind of bullying. Like, it's just easy wins for you. Now it's like, okay, people can fight longer, which means longer lasting wars for you as well. And it's not just over in 6 to 24 hours, and at least for some of the other points. But okay.
It's just ego at the end of the day. That's all I put it down to. It's like it's ego. It's like someone who wears like $100,000 chain. It's like, why? You know what I mean? Like, you could have just bought $100,000 of stocks, or invest it into something way better than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just like at the
I
end
think
of the
those are
day,
just
it's
scalable
ego.
money uh,
Yeah,
challenges
like
at that point. People again, I think it's all like subjective, right? It's like, well, this I make this amount, so I'm allotting this percentage of my budget and spending on that. And I mean, yeah, now it's like we'd almost be getting to a whole like psychosocial ideology on
it
like
is though. I think the whole thing is, though, that's the thing. When you ask the question, for example,
Mm,
how do I feel about spenders who say that? It is a
yep,
psychological question. It's nothing else. It's like, it's down to how they feel. It's a
yep.
psych thing. I'm not going to say, like, even though I'm being kind of brutal, every spender's like that because they're not,
Yeah.
but the guys that are like that, like I said, there's no sympathy from me, dude, like, because they know what they're getting involved into. They like the cycle of life that they live, and they just do it, and good for them.
Yeah, man. Just Akuna Matata.
Zero.
Uh,
Yeah.
all right. So, what do you think about this idea of having maybe like dedicated RSS marches? So, for example, when you're in, and this is something I think was floated around in a Q&A or a dev feedback where, and I think Rock has maybe something like this. I know they have more than 5 marches that you can run, but what do you think about this idea of having 5 marches, or basically being able to, like, when you're in KVK, you can have 10 marches. And then 5 of those marches are just dedicated RSS, and the other ones are just dedicated PvP. And then when you go back to the home kingdom, it's back down to 5 marches. What do you think about just the idea of
That'd
something
be
like
good.
that?
Yeah, that'd be good. Honestly,
Okay.
in Rock it's a bit different because everyone would know, like, if you play Rock, the extra matches is through Crystal Tech, so it's more of a PvP basis, and in Rock they don't play it that way. But if it had the restrictions that you said, I think it'd be good. Like the fact that you're at war, and maybe, like, they might have to change the talents or something,
Yeah,
or so you have that policy. So if you get attacked, you're not dying, because that's the only thing that's going to stop it, right? But it does kind of promote farm killing. It doesn't, do it at the same time. Like, it seems good. I like it. Like, you can fight, you can farm, right? And that's what people struggle with because you can't do both.
exactly.
That's the issue.
And when you're fighting, it's like you're always losing, especially if you're free to play, low spend, especially free to play, because you have to fight. And then it's okay, well, I can't do anything anymore. I have to wait all this time. I'm either going to send farmers out or I'm going to TP out and then go start farming. And then I'll come back, whenever I have my troops back and I've been able to farm a little bit. But to me, such, it feels like such a negative loss for players to not be able to be in kind of a constant state of farming if they can. And obviously, there still maybe should be risks associated. It's not like your farming troops maybe should be invincible, but at least having the option and the opportunity to farm during a KVK, even if it's you just sending your troops back behind the pass to farm and then like being okay with them doing that walk, at least you're still gathering something more than zero.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like we kind of go into like the earlier point again. You need resource to fight,
Yeah.
and it's the issue. Like, there could be so many solutions to it. I think even in the comment section, they could think of so many good solutions to giving just more resource. Like, as simple as just increase the base amounts. Like,
Yeah.
it's as easy as that. Like, they can do so many good stuff, but you are right. The issue is that you're trying to solve, which people don't realize, is just like, well, adding 5 resource matches and 5 PvP matches means you're trying to just make sure that you always have some sort of resource injection while you're at war, because that means you can fight more, right? And that's what everyone wants. So it's good. I like it. Like I said, I like the idea. It's a good idea.
Okay. Okay. What do you think about what do you think about this idea of maybe increasing the amount of troops that are able to be trained? And I say that because from feedback I've got from people coming out of season 1 is that if you're free to play low spend on average, you're not training enough troops to field more than maybe 1 full to maybe 2 full sets, but on average like 1 to 1.5 times of a full march. So that means, like, for example, let's say your max is 300K troops coming out of season one. I can't remember if it's that or if it's 250, but let's just say as an example, it's 300K. People are able to train as a free to play like 1.5 to maybe 2.25, something like that, by the time they get to KVK. So they're able to basically field 5 full marches one time, and then 2 to 3 of those marches, right, or however many times it may last. But like, that's the amount of troops. And obviously, as we know, the amount of troops directly correlates to how much fighting you're going to be able to do and how much sustain is going to happen out there in the field. To me, it feels like a simple solution is just allowing for more troops to be trained for the same amount of time. And I'm not saying maybe double it, but just increase the rate of it. Because as we know, once you get to a certain power level, you're probably not going to be training troops anymore. You're mostly just going to be like, okay, I'm already here. I'm not doing this anyways, right? It's like, you know, Mephisto didn't need to train more troops. I mean, you have a number of people that are above 200, 300 mil that probably are just doing the regular training, but they're not like over investing in a lot of troops. Obviously, after you get to a certain point, you've already kind of maxed out your elixir healing that you're able to do for your max 2 mil a day. It's just, right, or whatever the max would be for that season. So to me, it just feels like if we're already having low amounts of fighting when it comes to the final zone, we're not having enough marches and long enough fighting from the free-to-play low spend, why not just increase the amount of troops that could be trained within the same set of time?
No, you're right. It's like it's one of the points I've always said. Like people want to throw hate at me for like making that series, and people can like rewatch the series properly like through, but each thing is a different point of the game, and that is one thing I brought up. Yeah. Like you need to like, and it's a weird catch-22 though, and you'll see what I mean, because you want to train more troops, right? And you want to get more troops out there, which is 100% true. But then you get the problem that the devs are dealing with now, right? Well, what happens when you have too many troops? and that's where things are. I've noticed like going in the direction of deads, right? Because that's why they brought them in. People were getting, like you said, the fists that were getting just too big to a point where like, bro, it didn't matter to him. Like he could just keep going forever. Like, and it won't matter. And there's gonna be some players that it's gonna be able to do that in the future. So it's one of them which is good. I think you could train more troops, but it's one of them, like say, catch-22s that you might train more troops, but then you're gonna get more deads, right? And if you're gonna get more deads, have you really trained more troops? Do you know what I mean? Like, have you really done it? Like, or have you just put like a plaster on the situation that we're all struggling with, which is resources. Like resources is literally the biggest thing. Like no matter what anyone says, they'll say, "Oh no, resources are an issue for me." Yeah, you say that because you're running how many farm accounts? 5. All right then, buddy.
And to your point, my thing is that if you could train more troops, obviously, like this is my thing. It's like they added in they've added in more ways for troops to die or to get severely wounded, but they haven't increased the amount of overall troop production for the same amount of time. This is the same thing we were touching on with the catch-up mechanic. Same ideology where you're constantly introducing more heroes, more artifacts, more war pets, but you're not adding in enough events or enough reward compensation to balance that out. This is the same thing to me. So again, I view it, and I understand where you're going with as far as on the catch-22 part. I would still argue, though, that there's at least more pros than there are cons to increasing the amount. And I would even argue, why not double the amount? Like, what is it, 1,600 troops you can do at max level 25? Why not make it 3,000? Why not make it 30? Like, why not test it out and just see? Or better yet, why not ask the community? I mean, this is one of those things where like, now I'm even considering just making a freaking suggestion and just doing a video on it and putting it out. Because again, I think to your point, and from how I'm viewing it, it all kind of falls in that catch-up realm, that catch-up mechanic realm. And at the same time, with the ossuary now giving you the dead percentage back, combining that with the fact that we're not having as long-lasting fights as we are in the final zone, and a number of other things that we can point to that all fall within the same realm, I don't think the idea is crazy.
No, it's like this is what I mean. Like I was saying this 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was saying this 6 months ago, and people wanted to hate me. They still want to hate me today about it. But you can't argue with what's going on in game. Like it's fine to add content. It's so fine. Everyone wants more content. Like that's everything what everyone's been screaming for. But when you're not, like you said, when you're not scaling progression correctly, you fuck the game over. And it's simple as that. Like there's no other way of phrasing it. Like you need to allow players to be able to progress at the same bell curve as the game is bringing out content. Otherwise, you see what's happening right now where players might be entering G3 and have still got not a single awakened hero, and they're like, what am I going to be doing here? Like, I just feel like I'm so behind, and then they just dip because there's other games out there that honestly just shit ton reward you. Like, they just give you so many rewards because they realize, look, players want rewards, players want content, and we can churn out more heroes. Like that's my job. Like I'm a game company. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. So
Yeah.
it's like you said. At the end of the day, we need more content. We need better progression or rewards, and then maybe you'll see something improve with COD. But until then, we're going to be in this weird cycle that people are in and people are kind of okay with, which is weird to me.
Yeah. And I will give the COD team their props. I actually appreciate the release pacing that they've been doing for heroes, war pets, and artifacts. Like it feels like they're in a really nice sweet spot. Like they're not over delivering, they're not over making, because obviously the more that are introduced, especially if they're pumping, one out or two out every single update, which obviously they're not doing, thank the Lord or thank God Jesus, is that every time they do that, it just keeps pushing the goalpost. It keeps furthering and disparaging the catch-up mechanic or the catch-up function that much more from people that are just starting out to where basically the end game is now. So I, at least for one, will applaud them on that it at least feels like they're not crazy with just introducing and adding in so many new heroes or so many new artifacts or so many new war pets. I think the pacing is good.
Yeah, the pacing seems good just because of, I'd say, like how, you know, how, like we said, like how least rewarding the game is.
Yeah.
Like that's fine, but if there was more rewards in the game, it wouldn't feel like this at all. You'd be like,
Yeah.
the pacing would probably be a little bit. I wouldn't say too short, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. No, and,
Like,
and, and maybe they adjust that to your point, right? Because obviously, if you are catching up faster, then it means that you're hitting your end game sooner, and maybe the rate of introductions are more. But maybe if you did things like that, people would spend more money. Maybe then you could allocate and then adjust pacing for hero, war pet, artifact releasing. I mean, I think again, there's always going to be that give and take. But okay,
yeah.
so again, I feel like we've hammered a lot out here so far today. This has been pretty awesome. Anything in closing that you would like to share, whether it's final thoughts, shout outs, declarations, telling people what you got going on with AOEM, maybe a new game on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, you guys obviously know the channel, but the thing I'd honestly say to everyone to check out, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart because I am a gamer and I like following new games, is to check out Godforge. Like, legit is a new game coming out and it has a good studio behind it by content creators that have been in our exact same positions that we've been in with games they've played in the past, and they're kind of like sick and tired of it and they want to make their own game. And you can watch the full development of the game.
Is this is on the
Fateless
Fateless GG site, by the way?
and this is
Okay.
this is on the Fateless YouTube channel. You can go on the fateless.gg website. Technically, my channel, I've been covering bits and bats of it too. I even got a creator code already. The game's not even out. Like, they're doing everything to me right. So that's what I would say. If you guys want to find something different, that's, you could play alongside, because that's the one thing I've noticed, like, kind of on my channel. Like, I've been playing COD now, and because I'm just playing it and not covering it for content, like, I can actually play other games. You know what I mean? Like, I can actually play COD, and I can play like Raid, or I can play like DC Dark Legend or Age of Empires Mobile, right? So it's one of them where try it out and have a look, and who knows? You might enjoy it. You might be surprised on something different that's obviously not a 4X city building game. Let's just say that, right?
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. How about any shout outs, declarations?
Yeah. So, well, for me, the final thing is big shout out to you. Thank you for reaching out, dude. Honestly, big shout out to you. And obviously, the old Call of Dragons community that's kind of like kept me going for the last couple of years, growing up the channel to around like 3,000 or 4,000 where we were at. And then obviously all the new supporters of the Age of Empires mobile supporters that follow the channel, because a lot of them just come and watch the content that I'm tagged in because they're just really good like that. So honestly, a big shout out to all of them. Shout out to even like Guns as well, because sometimes when I'm like thinking about things, he's thinking about things, like we do talk about it. So it's really good like having those type of people that you can talk to. So yeah, man, they're the ones I'd honestly shout out, like out of everyone, like the community, you, Guns, and that's probably it.
Okay. 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 Gotcha. I mean, maybe, Gus doesn't really need to be in there, but okay. Thank you so much. Just, all right.
Got to throw in the boy. We always got to throw in the boy.
Yeah, man. No, of course, man. Listen, this has been an absolute pleasure. Again, I equally appreciate you sitting down with me, Sneaky. I thought this was great on us really being able to kind of dissect the game in a big way and in an expansive way where we're covering multiple topics. So this has been an absolute pleasure, man. So thank you so much. I appreciate you making some time for us today. And yeah, this should be a good one. As always, let us know in the comments which topic interested you the most. Was there a hot take? Not a hot take? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know why and what you think down there. And that's going to be it for us, man. As always, until next time, we will catch you later.